Thank you very much for the opportunity for being here with you. I know several of you here from through the years. I'm Rick Crandall, President, CEO and founder, actually, of the Colorado Freedom Memorial Foundation and the Colorado Freedom Memorial out in Aurora. How many have been out to the memorial in this room? This is virgin territory here then. All right, there's a whole bunch of you that haven't. Perfect, that's good. For 30 years, back up until from 1991 to 2021, I did a morning radio show here in town on KEZW Radio, the old AM station, and the show was called The Breakfast Club. And over those 30 years of being on KEZW, I became initially close with the World War II generation. Our radio station, old AM radio station, 1430 on the AM dial. We played everything from Glenn Miller to James Taylor. It was about as eclectic as you could get on purpose. What I identified very early on in my time there was I had nothing in common with the people who were listening to the radio station. When I started there in 1991, it was largely the average age of the listener. In 91, I was 36 years old, 35 years old. The average age of the listener was 79. So it was World War II generation and a one or two World War I stragglers maybe in there, but it was an older audience. So what I immediately needed to do was try to find a connection with them. What was I going to do that much younger to draw them into my world? Well, the connection was I had been in the Air Force, and many who listened were World War II veterans, and that's where we started and then grew from there. Over the years, we took numerous listener trips around the world. We took listeners with us. In 2000, we ended up where that picture was taken, at the American Cemetery at Normandy in France. I went to do a radio show there back to here. So I did my morning radio show from the cemetery, from the visitors, from the shed, the tool shed out in the cemetery at the time. Sat on 2 bags of fertilizer. They didn't have any chairs in the shed, so I sat on fertilizer, which seemed appropriate for a radio guy, but that is where I was and did my show for 4 hours back here. It was a tribute to Colorado's World War II veterans. And during that 4 hours, the superintendent of the cemetery brought a variety of people in to be on the radio with me, including a gentleman from California who came up the stairs or up the steps and into the shed and sat down, plopped down in front of me. And I said, "What brings you here?" And he said, "My brother is buried here. He was killed not far from here in World War II, and my father decided that he should be buried here rather than brought home." And I didn't like that. And from that point on, I didn't like my dad. I hated my father. I told my father, "The Nazis didn't kill my brother, you did, because you didn't bring him home." And so that was the relationship he'd had and held on to all those years. And on this day, while I was there, he had come back. He had come for the first time to visit his brother's grave. And I said to him, "So why don't you, after you go out there, if you don't mind, why don't you come back and be on the radio?" And he said, "Okay." So off he went. About an hour and a half passed. I didn't think he was coming back. But I see him coming up in front of the shed, and he comes in and he plops down and his face is swollen and he'd obviously been crying. And I said, "So?" And he looked at me and he said, "My father was right. This is where my brother should always have been." And I stayed quiet, and he said, "Now, how do I make it right with my father who's no longer alive and who I treated so poorly for so long?" And he left, and that stuck with me, that part of that emotion, that event, because obviously there's 9,400 Americans that are buried in that cemetery. He couldn't be the only one that had gone through that, and likely folks from Colorado, they made that decision, right? They had the option. You could have them buried there, or you could have their remains returned home, but if they were returned home, you were responsible for all of what happened once they got home, the funeral, paying, making all those arrangements. It was Depression era. It was families couldn't afford that. One, so they made that very difficult decision to leave their loved ones where they had fallen. And two, they had already gone through a period of grief when they got the knock on the door, the telegram, when they got word that they had died, and didn't want to have to go through that again. There are 27 of those cemeteries like Normandy around the world that the American Battle Monuments Commission manages. Coloradans are buried in 22 of those 28 cemeteries around the world. So all of that is percolating in my head, and I come back and I'm doing my radio show and I can't get this out of my head, and what am I going to do about it? And finally, I'm thinking, well, what if we had a memorial, and what if it had all their names on it? And so at least symbolically, by names, we could bring them home. Is there any point to that? And so I met with the folks at the VFW, and they said, Rick, that is a great idea. We're right behind you, buddy. Good luck. We're right here behind you to help you. Yeah, way behind me. I came to the American Legion. I've been to this post many times back in the day when we were beginning this process, and got the same message. So it was going to be me, or it wasn't going to happen. So off we went on this effort to build this. It took 12 years to raise money to build this memorial because nobody wanted to give money to some morning radio guy. Who are you, and what experience do you have doing this? Well, nobody had experience doing this, so it took a long time. And I came to many places like this. In church groups, I have been in more church basements in Denver than any human being. I have spoke to more senior groups in basements, and had chicken cooked every way you could cook it, and Jell-O with more things in it than probably should be. I mean, I lived the whole experience, and I would get, God bless them, they'd give me a $20 check when I was finished, and then call the house a week later and say to my wife, we made a donation to Rick when he was here. Have you started construction? Well, we need $1.2 million, and we got your $20. It got us closer, but it's going to take a little while. Well, it did. It took 12 years. And the main reason it took 12 years was because good old German ancestry of mine, I was hell-bent that the only names that were going to be on this memorial were those from Colorado who were killed in action, died on the battlefield, gave all for our freedom, the world's freedom, and I wouldn't put sponsor logos on it. And I was told by several major companies in Colorado, can we put a bronze plaque up there with our name on it? No, it's their names that are. So it took longer than maybe it needed to, but it was the right thing. So this is the day before the dedication of the Colorado Freedom Memorial. It's out in Aurora. It's right across the street from Buckley, now Space Force Base, directly across the street. And that's what it looked like at sunrise the day before we dedicated it. Glass panels falling backwards and forwards, symbolic of men and women falling on the battlefield. The names etched in the glass, you can make out there's rows of names. They're not etched in the glass, they're actually on a printed piece, a sheet, a wafer-thin, paper-thin piece of glass, sandwiched in between two thicker pieces. In front of the memorial, there's a trough of water, symbolic of all of those conflicts being separated from Colorado by a body of water. So a lot of symbolism to it. Christopher Kenton was the young man who designed the memorial, was 24 years old at the time when he designed it. Did a remarkable job. My only contribution to this memorial, other than raising the money, the peaks at the top. I still to this day have this notion, kind of a romantic notion, if you will, that the last thing most of those men and women saw when they left here was the mountains of the home. And I wanted the mountains reflected in the memorial, and you see that in the peaks at the top. 24 panels in all, 6,173 names, Coloradans killed in action, Spanish-American War through today, 6,173. When I started this project at the State Archives, they handed me a list of Coloradans killed in action. And as they were handing it to me, they said, by the way, this isn't accurate. Well, thank you. I'm off to a great start here, aren't I? Wow. So we started with a list of 5,200 names, and as I told you, we have over 6,100 names now. We continue to search records constantly. Every week or two, we typically find another name or a family member or some kind of information that's really vital to what we do. And we're pretty proud of the records that we have out at the memorial that we've been able to put together. And there you get a better glimpse of those rows of names that are on the memorial. They are not in alphabetical order. There's no rank. If you gave your life for your country, it doesn't matter what your rank is. You paid the private paid the same price as a colonel, right? I mean, so we didn't want any rank, and we purposely didn't put them alphabetically to represent the chaos of war, symbolically that way. The other thing that wasn't an initial intention, but we came to learn was actually a really good thing about doing this with them not in alphabetical order. When Gold Star families come out to the memorial to look at their loved one's name on the memorial, they come out there often, especially if it's just happened or recently happened, they come out there believing they are the only person in the world that's going through what they're going through. But when they come to the memorial and walk past all these other names looking for their loved one's name, they have told me repeatedly, it was the first time that I really realized it's not just me. There's a lot of people that have been through this. Not that it makes it better, but they just know there's other people who can understand what they've been through. So there you go. We have those. The mountains are seen pretty easily in the background from up there at the memorial. These two photos are really cool photos. There's a Colorado photographer who was putting together a book I don't think he ever completed it, but he was putting together a book of Colorado military monuments at night. And he came out to the Colorado Freedom Memorial on a winter's night. I didn't elect to meet him out there that particular night. You can see why. It was miserable out there. But he found his way to it. He took this picture. And the second picture is my favorite picture ever taken of the Colorado Freedom Memorial. It's that same night that he was out there. The moon, the memorial. I named this photo when I first saw it, Closing Ranks, because it looks like they've all kind of come together to protect one another on that cold winter's night out there. And I think that's really a very, very cool picture. Now we needed to start, we needed to do things out there, right? We had the memorial. We're in a city park of Auroras. It used to be called Spring Hill Park, out by the Spring Hill, at one time Spring Hill Recreation, now then Beck Recreation Center. They just closed it. They're getting ready to tear it down. But it's now, I've been able to get the Aurora City Council to rename that park Memorial Park. And that's what it's called now. The sign actually, I think, went in yesterday, but we'll see. But we need to do things out there. So I say to Diane, hey, I've got an idea. What if we could, in this park, put mason jars? And what if in those mason jars we could put LED candles that were lit? And what if we got one for every single name on the memorial? And so we call this Light Their Way Home. And across the expanse of the park, jars laid out, all of them lit. And we do it for 3 nights. We're selecting the nights for this year, but we do it for 3 nights. And that's how it looks across the entirety of the park. Now, if you were in a helicopter above it, and Buckley doesn't like a lot of helicopters flying right that close to him, so it's only happened once, and it was Channel 7's traffic copter. And the reporter that was up there texted me from up there and said, guess what it looks like? And I knew what it was supposed to look like. I said, the American flag. He said, it's exactly what it looks like. So we had laid it all out and designed it so that it would look like a flag. Not that you can tell if you're standing in the middle of it, but one for every name on the Colorado Freedom Memorial. It's a beautiful display that we do out there. So about 3 years into this now, once it's open, I'm thinking there's got to be more to this. We've got the wall, we've got their names on there, but something's not quite finished. And I'm reading this article and I thought, wait a minute. What if I could bring soil, those that are fallen that are overseas, what if I could bring soil from their grave sites? So we are really well connected with the American Battle Monuments Commission. As a result of that broadcast I did all those years ago, we've stayed in good touch with them. I reached out to them and I said, I'd like to bring soil from the graves of Coloradans buried in your cemeteries. And I heard it like a choke, and the guy said, all of them? And I said, well, maybe not all of them. How about if I could just bring soil from each of the cemeteries? And they said, all 22 they're buried in? And I said, no. They said, no. They said, that you'll never get that back into the States. They said, so we talked a little bit further. What we set out to do, we identified, so those 22 cemeteries that Coloradans are buried in at the ABMC cemetery, they're in 8 countries. Those 8 countries, Belgium, England, France, Italy, and you get around to the other side, you've got the Netherlands, you've got the Philippines, you've got Tunisia, and you've got, who am I forgetting? France? Did I say France? Who else am I forgetting over here? Oh, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Philippines, and Tunisia. The largest number of Coloradans buried in an overseas cemetery are in the Philippines, largely because the Philippine cemetery in Manila ended up being where Americans who fought all through the islands, all through the South Pacific, they were buried there, so the largest number there. So what I had to do was I had to buy igloo coolers, basically. I had to have 2 airproof, watertight containers in each one of them. I had to pay for the shipping for them to go to all 8 of those cemeteries and return to Miami, to the USDA Center, and then back to Colorado. So I had to do all of that. And I'm noticing it's 34 pages of instructions that we've got. And the last page said, we participate in the government's Paper Reduction Act. I still have it. So that was the last. So 34 pages of instructions. So off we sent the coolers. They went overseas within 2 weeks. We had 7 of the 8 back. We were just missing the Philippines. Well, you can see where we got this soil from, too. From Henri Chapelle Cemetery in Belgium. This was from the grave of Private William Woodsworth, who was killed in Aachen, Germany. In France, from the Meuse-Argonne World War I cemetery, we got soil from the grave of John Buckley, who Buckley Space Force Base, former Air Force Base across the street, is named for. Let's see, from Italy, we got soil from 10th Mountain Division graves. Colorado, 10th Mountain Division graves that were buried. What are you doing to me? Wake up. And so it goes. And so you see they're in the containers at the base. At the base of each of the pillars, there's an opening. There's a bronze plaque over it. We moved the plaque. We put Colorado soil in there. And then we ceremonially poured some of the soil from the graves overseas at the base of each of them in those jars. We poured a little bit of the soil on top of the collar to symbolically return them home. Then those bronze caps were sealed. Not only did we do that, but we had the U.S. Air Force Honor Guard and drill team from Washington, D.C. flew out to do all the ceremonial honors for us. And not only did that happen, and they were remarkable. France and England sent military attachés to represent their countries at this ceremony. And Luxembourg sent their American ambassador from Washington, D.C. to be a part of this ceremony. It was really a very, very special day out at the Freedom Memorial. This one now, after all of that, this one was not my idea, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I wanted it. The Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument. This was the brainchild of a World War II veteran, Medal of Honor recipient for action on Iwo Jima, Woody Williams, Herschel Williams. Pretty cool dude. After he served in the military, when he got out, he went to work for the VA. He had a long career at the VA and was quite the speaker around the country. He was requested a lot to come speak about his action at Iwo Jima, his Medal of Honor. And he thought, as he was out doing this, we do a great job of honoring veterans and remembering them. We do a great job of, Veterans Day and Memorial Day. What do we do for the families? Where's the memorial for them? So he had the memorial designed, the Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument with the silhouette of the fallen soldier cut into it. He had it designed with the intent that there'd be one in all 50 states. I believe statewise we're up to about 35 or 36 states that have it. We had the first one in Colorado. There's now a second one up in Meade. But we had the first one. And Woody really loved how we were going to position this at the Colorado Freedom Memorial. This soldier facing the memorial, saluting their fellow fallen. When you go to the memorial and look back down and see that soldier saluting up, it's really pretty powerful. He wanted to come see it. He was 92 when we dedicated this. We had arranged a private jet to pick him up in West Virginia and bring him out for our dedication. And the night before he was to leave, before we were supposed to fly out and get him, his family called and said, we can't send him. He's been in contact with 3 people who have COVID. This was during COVID time. And they wouldn't let him go. And he was mad. So mad, he recorded a video on his phone and texted it to me and told me to play it the next day at our ceremony. Yes, sir. Unfortunately, before he came out, he passed away 2 years later, I believe it was, after that. He was the last living Medal of Honor recipient from World War II when he passed away. So what's left? Well, the Colorado Freedom Memorial Education and Visitor Center. I can get you out to the memorial and I can tell you stories and I can show you the names on the wall, and then you say, thank you very much, and you leave. And why would you come back? If you have a name, if you know somebody on the memorial personally, probably that would bring you back. Okay, what else? What made me crazy was we don't know anything about these people that are on the memorial besides their names. Of the 6,173 on the memorial, we have bio information detailed. I mean, not just name, rank, serial number, and where they died, but what about them personally. We have information on just about 2,000 of the 6,000. We have some that we know they're from Colorado. We don't know where in Colorado. We don't, that's wrong. To me, I want to teach you who they were. I want you to know that Harold Webster from Loveland, who was killed aboard the Arizona, wanted to be a basketball player. I want you to know what their dreams were, what their plans were for their future. I want you to know the stories of their service. I don't want you just to know a name on the memorial. And the only way I can do that is if we've got a place to share their stories as we learn them, to teach them. So we have set out to build this new Colorado Freedom Memorial Education and Visitor Center. We're well on our way. That's what the building is going to look like. designed by Christopher Kenton, who designed the Colorado Freedom Memorial. I called him when we were ready to maybe get a rendering of what the building was going to look like. I called him and I said, hey, I need your help. And he said, what's up? I said, can you recommend somebody who could design our new visitor center? And there's dead silence on the phone. And I said, hello? And he said, what the hell is wrong with you? I said, we now have known him many years, right? I said, what? He said, you think I'm going to let somebody else design the building that's going to be in my park with my memorial? I said, okay, settle down. So he designed this. It has a classroom in it. It's got a conference room in it. It's got an auditorium. It's got a wonderful exhibit hall along the front, second-story observation deck. It's going to be a really, really beautiful building. If all goes like it's supposed to go, and I continue to have success cobbling together the budget to build this thing, we need to raise total, either through raised or in-kind contributions, we need $6.5 million. So we're nibbling away at it, so we're pretty excited about it. If we continue to go the way we're going, May 2027, Memorial Day weekend 2027, next year, we'll dedicate the completed Visitor and Education Center. We'll be able in the theater, with our partnership with the Normandy American Cemetery, they'll do live virtual tours of that cemetery. Any number of people that have come to the memorial and said, I've always wanted to go to the cemetery, I've always wanted to go to Normandy. Well, we'll be able to take you there now in our new building with live tours. They'll have a staff member out walking through the cemetery, answering questions live from people that are sitting in our auditorium. Just one of the many things that we'll be able to do there. So it's going to be a really, really exciting and beautiful facility once we get it all built. I was given this photo by the Colorado National Guard, by their historian, who said, Rick, I don't know. I have this photo, and I've had this photo for a long time. I inherited it here in this job. I don't know who he is. I don't know where in Colorado he was from. I had mentioned to him that I was looking for a model for a bronze sculpture I wanted to put at the Freedom Memorial honoring the Spanish-American War veterans. There's 47 from Colorado who were killed in the Spanish-American War. Fred Springstead from Golden was the first on August 1st, 1899. The problem at the memorial, not the problem, but it's people come out and they see the memorial and tour around and all that stuff, and they bypass Spanish-American War. I mean, that's a long time ago now, right? And a lot of people don't even know they're related to somebody who maybe died or served in the Spanish-American War. So I want some way to highlight that. So we're going to have a bronze done up in Loveland using him, whoever he is, as our model. And that bronze will be in the plaza in the front of the new visitor center when we open it next year. I'm really excited about that. End of show. This is, obviously a labor of love. My wife sometimes says a labor of idiocy, but it's taken the whole family right along with it. It's been a long journey now. It's been 26 years now since we did that broadcast at Normandy. And along the way, I have befriended many, many, many veterans from all of the conflicts we fought in since we became a state. I'm closest to World War II. From the radio days, for 20 years, I was an affiliate professor at Regis University. We taught a course called Stories from Wartime, where I moderated panel discussions with veterans. And it was in our first few years, it was all World War II. And then we started moving forward a bit, ended with Iraq and Afghanistan. One that usually comes up, I'm sorry I didn't include it. Colorado as your home of record when you entered the service and died on the battlefield or from wounds suffered on the battlefield for inclusion on the Colorado Freedom Memorial. We had to have some kind of parameters. I get people all the time that say, we'll get a call at the Freedom Memorial phone, which is also in my house, And it'll be somebody who'll say, my dad just died. He served in World War II. Can I get him on the memorial? No, I mean, he came home and obviously lived a whole bunch of years at home after the war, which is a blessing for you. And I'm sorry we can't put him on the memorial. If we had tried to put everybody from Colorado who served in the military, I still wouldn't have a memorial up. That thing would be forever long. So we identified that shorter criteria. We did put extended foundation underground out both sides of the memorial. So if future generations have a need to add panels or things to it, they'll be able to do that. Obviously, we're taking donations from everybody just so we can get this thing built. Beyond that, any histories you may know of folks that might be on the memorial, we would welcome that to add to our database. People you may know or work with or work for who might be looking for something like this to attach their name to or to be a part of. Hey, let us know. Let them know about us, and we can reach out to them. Go to the website. That's a good way, and you can get familiar. ColoradoFreedomMemorial.com. You can go to the website. It's a pretty good website. A lot of great information about us and what we're doing, and we take volunteers all the time out there when we have activities. So there's a lot of ways you can help. If you got something special you do, let us know. Maybe we'll have you do that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate it.